Mike, we ran through these team recaps, and we're going to keep on doing so. We back team recap, mic'd up. We talking about the Los Angeles Rams. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I got to work with this wonderful new Rams logo today when I was creating the PowerPoint. So it's an absolute beauty.
It's garbage. It's garbage. We put all these together with PowerPoint. We do a better job on PowerPoint than they do with that. Whatever Adobe visual they have is trash. This whole rebrand, trash. Just like this draft class. Let's get in it.
Oh, Mike.
So, Mike,
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna let you start off because I think we both in the same spot. You lay down this whoop and you about to drop them.
I when I first looked at this, I didn't hate the players. I'll be completely honest. I think Cam Akers, he's a solid, pretty balanced back. I think Van Jefferson, he's a good route runner, not a great athlete. And obviously, you have the injury concerns with the whole Jones fracture at the combine thing. And Terrell Lewis has an injury history of his own with torn ACL. I believe a ligament damage in his elbow that held him out in 2017. But man, just the value here, Mike, that I didn't realize when I was initially looking at it that they went Cam Akers ahead of J.K. Dobbins and they went Van Jefferson ahead of Denzel Mims. That is – I like Les Snead too, Mike, but that is just egregious. That is terrible. Like, we were sitting here and we were trying to think of Cam Akers, yeah, maybe he was the fifth best running back in the class. And it's like, oh, crap, the Ravens picked Dobbins at 55. And just the fact that you let that man slip when you had him there too. There was no reason he was available when you were picking at 52, and you let it slip. Akers, I think, is solid, like I said, but to me, he was more of a third round, even late third round running back. And Jefferson, like I said, there's pros and cons, but it's like, just what are you supposed to do when you're passing on a guy that many thought were going to go in the first round in Mims?
Yeah, for sure. And also with Van Jefferson, obviously he's not there yet, but at his ceiling, he might be Robert Woods. If this pick were to really work out, I think it's a very prototypical Robert Woods kind of player, prototype. Denzel Mims is something they don't have, a big body. And he's kind of an oddball on that because he catch the 50-50 balls. He has the speed to go deep. He kind of can do it all. He's a great route runner. Kind of one of my falls in the second round that I didn't really understand. But I really don't understand it when you pick Van Jefferson above that. So I think my favorite pick here is probably Terrell Lewis. Obviously, this whole athletic kind of tweener edge that comes out of Alabama, it hasn't worked out recently. They've turned into these nice rotational pass rush, third down specialist, which is maybe what Terrell Lewis is. I'm not trying to put the mold on him that every Alabama edge rusher is going to be the same, but he kind of has the same characteristics as a lot of the other ones we've seen in past drafts. So if that's my best pick as a rotational pass rusher, did you really win the draft? No.
No, I agree. And I actually think you put that really well with Van Jefferson, though, where he is kind of at his ceiling of Robert Woods. And I even have questions if he'll get there. The man's already going to be 24 in his rookie season. I know we kind of mentioned that with Michael Pittman a couple of videos ago, that there is a concern that he's already reached his athletic ceiling. We didn't see him test the combine, so we don't even know necessarily where those numbers fall. And I do think there's questions about him in terms of just can he be a deep ball receiver? Can he separate from NFL defenders? And then, like you said, a guy like Denzel Mims, he is almost in the same prototype as Josh Reynolds, a guy who's going to be playing a bunch of snaps for them, we think. So it's why wouldn't you upgrade over Reynolds instead of kind of replace or get a similar receiver like Robert Woods? So I agree with that. I agree with your evaluation on Lewis too. I think that he's a super raw prospect, and if you can work to refine his skill set, he might be one of the best value picks in the draft. But can he stay healthy? Like I said, the ACL, the elbow ligament, my man just hasn't been able to play, and reps are the only way that you're going to be able to get better. So the only other pick that I really want to talk about of kind of the draft was Bryson Hopkins. I know he was one guy that initially fell under my radar, but after kind of revisiting him and going back, I really liked him as a route runner and kind of after the catch. I think that he's a really good fit for the modern NFL. He's not a good blocker, but, I mean, honestly, in the modern NFL, how many tight ends are great blockers? I can think of a couple. Obviously, George Kittle, the high-end ones, but other than that, there's not that many. So I think it's a really interesting pick, but as we're going to see on the next slide here, did they even need to go tight end?
Hold up. Go back. I got one more pick I want to talk about real quick. We really value this position. I think that Sam Sloman pick in the 7th round was a really solid pick. So go right to the special team slide. Oh, I'm just messing with you. We don't talk about that shit. Let's go over the offense. I just want to mess with you, Mike.
Man, I mean, I guess you're getting the replacement for Greg Zuerlein, too, while we're at it. So we probably should mention that because he's been a staple for as long as I can remember. So, like, off of that, what are kind of your general thoughts on this offense?
Yeah, I think me and you both agree. This might be one of, if not the toughest division in the NFC, if not the NFL. Does this offense really put you over the needle? You're playing offenses like the Cardinals, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. This might be the fourth best offense. I think it's a good offense. It's better than it's not a fourth place team offense, but this is a really good division. They really don't have the firepower. Robert Woods Cooper Kupp is probably their best weapon. But obviously Cooper Kupp has had some problems staying healthy on the field at his best. He's been a really solid wide receiver. You really kind of teeter on that wide receiver one, but he's also had two other kind of, I wouldn't even call them number two options, but Cooper, Woods, and Cooks were all kind of like, it was like almost a 1A, 1B, 1C situation. So now we're down to 1A, 1B, and like a 3 with Josh Reynolds. So I'm interested to see how that works. He is going to be kind of their staple weapon. Cooper Kupp should be the number one wide receiver, I think, even over Robert Woods. And I'm not sure he can keep that production. He's going to start seeing double teams. He's going to start seeing safeties up top. And I'm not sure he can make the separation and make the plays. Yes, obviously he can make contested catches, which he's shown while he's been in the league. But he's going to get a little bit more pressure with Cooks off obviously the team moving on. And I think that's a safety that's now going to be looking at Cooper Kupp over Cooks, and I think that might hurt some of the production.
No, I agree. That's a really good point. When you think of Cooper Kupp's game, he's best utilized out of the slot, running those kind of shallow and underneath routes. Well, when you have a guy like Brandin Cooks who can kind of take the top off the defense and forces safeties to stay back, now they're going to be able to play up, even if it's just a yard, maybe 2 yards. Now he is going to be kind of that primary weapon, and they're going to key in on that, And especially with another loss that I want to talk about is Todd Gurley. Like, what are you going to do without Todd Gurley? Really, this team, we could talk about how PFF undervalues running backs and all that and all this garbage, but really Todd Gurley, this team's went as he went, So how are you gonna cope with losing him? I know he wasn't at full strength last year, and your team definitely didn't look at full strength last year. So where do you kind of stand on Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson? Do you think they're going to be able to fill his shoes and take the pressure off Jared Goff, or no?
A little bit. He's obviously not probably the worst running back kind of class we've seen. I think Cam Akers can be a decent running back. Do I think? But I think especially in the NFL, if you want to be a competing team, you probably need right around at least 1,000-yard, running back from at least scrimmage yards. And I don't see either of these being that piece, but I also don't see them being equal pieces, like kind of what we saw in Detroit quite a bit of years back with like the Reggie Bush, the Joint Bell combo that we had. This is not that. Like, this combo is average at best. They need kind of a difference maker that can break for the big play. And nothing about Henderson last year and then Akers in college showed me that they're kind of that big play. They might be able to kind of get some rough yards, get third and short. Maybe they could make those kind of plays. But I don't see either of them breaking it for a 20-yard, 30-yard run very often. They both are average NFL backs at best.
No, I agree. I think that Akers could be a little bit better than that. I think that he was really a victim of that terrible Florida State offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, honestly, is he going to be able to fill Todd Gurley's shoes? We're talking about an absolute difference maker, a perennial 1,000-yard guy, at least 1,000 yards from scrimmage. He was an impact player in the passing game, and just what he did in the red zone, especially 2 years ago, obviously. Like, my man was a touchdown machine, basically one every week. So I don't know if even these two added together are going to be able to fill those shoes, especially as another thing that we're going to see is this offensive line is kind of getting worse, obviously. You have guys like Whitworth, who he's going to be 38 years old next season. He's been a mainstay as a top 5 tackle in the NFL these past couple of years, or the past almost 10 years. But at what point are we going to see him kind of fall off? We've seen guys like Jason Peters. We've seen their play start to kind of fall. We haven't necessarily seen that from Whitworth as much, but this could obviously be the year. You have a hole at center. Corbett didn't play very well at left guard last year, so it's like, well, what do these guys have to work with? I think that a lot of people were kind of too low on Jared Goff after his rookie season, and they all wanted to can him. but because he played so bad. But then they added the weapons around him. But now after you pay him, it's almost like we're to the point where the weapons are starting to go away. So I just wonder if he's going to kind of regress, fall back to that maybe even late teens, mid-20s ranked quarterback, and this offense is going to kind of flounder. I can honestly see that.
Yeah, in all honesty, I want to say something real quick. Obviously, you got 2 tight ends listed, which we don't see. Actually, 3 tight ends listed, which you don't see very often. This team would have been a perfect with that 2 tight end set, two outside wide receivers. J.K. Dobbins would have been a great fit here, and I might be talking about this team totally different because if you were just gonna, and obviously, and especially in this division, you see a lot of that running the ball. We're gonna run 2 tight end packages. We're gonna put the running back, and we're just gonna beat you down the middle until we get in the end zone. And J.K. Dobbins would have been the perfect running back for that. I think he's the kind of do it all back. He's a 3-down back, and that would have been a piece I might think a little bit differently about this. But I don't think Cam Akers is going to be your 3-down back that can kind of just beat a team by himself.
No, and I don't want to keep harping on this, but just, man, the vision that Dobbins had to kind of capitalize on questionable or suspect offensive line, he could kind of make the best out of that when I don't know if Cam Akers will. So other than that, I mean, are you ready to hop into the defense? Because I think that's kind of questionable as well.
Yeah, I think there's one part that's not a question. That'd be Aaron Donald. And you'll see that when we do our top 100 list. So you guys tune in for that. But start with you. We like to start front 4s. I guess for them, start front 7. Some of your thoughts.
Well, for me, it was really interesting because, usually I make sure I notate the position. I put D ends, I put D tackles. But really with these front 3 I'll start with, they can kind of play anywhere across the defensive line. We saw that with Ashawn in Detroit. He can kind of play anywhere from nose to maybe 4 tech. Michael Brockers has been known to do that. He can play 5 tech even. And then Aaron Donald, I mean, what can you even say about him? He is probably the best football player I've seen in my entire life, just straight up. He's the best at what he does. Obviously, he's not the most valuable considering quarterbacks, but he is the best at what he does. Simple as that. So, and then in terms of the linebacking core, there's some question marks, obviously, losing a guy like Cory Littleton, but you did bring in Leonard Floyd. You drafted Terrell Lewis. The only thing that I wonder is I feel like they have a lot of pass rushers, in the Floyds, Lewises, Sampsons, but who is going to be that guy who covers players coming out of the backfield, covers those tight ends, and who is going to be racking up 100 tackles here? That's kind of what I wonder. One thing that I did want to mention is from last year they've lost 3 of their top 5 tacklers on the team in Dante Fowler, Cory Littleton, and Eric Weddle. So who is going to be the guy to kind of step up and replace that production? I really don't know. But I will say that if you have a suspect linebacking core, the best way to do it is have a lot of dudes who can hold up double teams at the offensive line, keep those linebackers clean, and this is kind of the perfect defensive line to do that,
No doubt. I still think they need help. I would love to see Terrell Lewis, Leonard Floyd kind of rotating in that second, and Sampson even just a rotation of pass rushers, and then have your kind of foundation piece. They don't have that. And obviously some kind of linebacker that can cover and kind of do it all. So 2 free agents I think that are available that would really help this team and might kind of bring the picture a little bit full circle. Number 1, Nigel Bradham. I think a kind of do it all linebacker would be great sitting behind those front 3. Number 2, Everson Griffin, I think, is the kind of veteran they need. I think could really boost up this pass rush, help some of the younger players, and kind of get the athletic and then more of just a stone. Everson Griffin kind of do it all, stop the run, get pressure. I think that'd be a really nice piece for them to pick up.
I agree with Griffin to a point because I almost feel like if you bring him in, you have to switch to a 4-3. But honestly, with the roster that you have, a 4-3 might be best. I don't know if I really want Everson Griffin as a stand-up outside linebacker, assuming that's what you're saying, or are you going to have him as a 4-tech?
See, I really don't. For me, a pass rusher is a pass rusher. I think he has the speed. He has the athleticism, the speed to get around. Does he have to stand up? If you're going to run a 5-man front, for me, it's just 5 men up front. And obviously, when you talk about 3-4 outside linebackers, a lot of times it just kind of goes with that Von Miller kind of architect. But Bradley Chubb wasn't that, I don't think, coming to college. If you watch Bradley Chubb film, like he was a 4-3 D end, and he transitioned just fine in his first year. So I think if you have a knack for getting to the quarterback, I don't see really – I guess for me, a pass rusher is a pass rusher if that's your number 1 goal and priority. It's not like you're not asking Everson Griffin to go out and cover kind of the deeps and maybe take some running backs out of the backfield. I think if you just have obviously if he's in the playing on the field, you have one goal in mind for him: get to the quarterback, get pressure, maybe make a difference in the run.
No, and I can see that. And, kind of to go off, though, if they were to switch to a 4-3, I do think Aaron Donald is best suited as a 3-tech. He's best when he is kind of that one-gap penetrator. And Everson Griffin would help take a lot of pressure off him that really they have nobody else to take that pressure off him right now. Obviously, in the past, you've had the Ndamukong Suhs, Clay Matthews, Dante Fowlers. All those guys are gone. So as great as Aaron Donald is, how much is he going to be able to do with kind of a bare bones supporting cast around him, especially in terms of rushing the passer? It's a good question to have. And the only kind of concern I do have is that the Rams only have $6 million in cap space, so Griffin might be a stretch. But I do think a guy like Bradham or even a Michael Kendricks, I think that you could get them kind of on the cheap to help bolster that linebacking core. And then you would maybe have another piece that could rack up 90, 100 tackles.
Why'd you let me go through that whole rant knowing they only had $6 million in cap space? Obviously, they could probably clear it. They could make it work if they wanted to, but they're probably not going to. So my apologies for that rant, guys. But also some holes. They have some holes in the back end. That corner position, that number 2, Troy Hill, not sure I trust that. Obviously, they have a pretty good number 1 in Jalen Ramsey. They traded 2 first-round picks away for it, but I think some question there is. And John Johnson, maybe it's just my lack of knowledge on the player, but is that really the best we can do? I think especially the safety position's been undervalued. You can pick some up pretty cheap in free agency. In the draft, they always tend to fall. You see a guy that you probably thought should have went in the first, go in the second, or the second go in the third, such as Del Pitt being one of those. So more holes down the back end of the defense.
I'm gonna disagree with you there. Obviously, we know what Jalen Ramsey can do. And Troy Hill last year, he was targeted 51 times and only allowed 23 receptions. I just pulled that up on the fly. So I do think that he had a good season last year. Obviously, he's not the ideal 2. He's not the Marcus Peters or Aqib Talib, but I think he is a serviceable option. And in terms of John Johnson, he's a really solid free safety too. I do think it's kind of a lack of knowledge there. I'd say that because he is a tall, really good, rangy free safety, but he can also make plays against the run too. Really, him and Taylor Rapp both. They're both a really solid kind of young safety duo. Rapp had over 100 tackles last year, young guy. I think that there's a lot of growth. So while I agree that it's not even probably top 10 in terms of secondaries, I think that there is room for them to grow with the unit that they have, considering the kind of lack of cap space they have,
Yeah, they really don't have much area to make free agent signings or any kind of different moves that are going to actually make an impact. So it's not I'm just mentioning about the team, not a huge fan of what they have out on the field.
No, I agree with that. But at the end of the day, you always say it. The players on the field can only go so far. It really just matters, are you getting a win? Are you getting a loss? It's the games. So, Mike, I'm gonna pass it right to you. Vegas has the win total for the Rams set at 8. Where do you fall on that? And another thing that I'll ask is, we're gonna hit the rest of the division in a minute. But if you're taking the over on the 8, do you think this team could even compete for the division or no?
Can they? Yes. Do I think they will? No. I think that 8, I think just looking at the schedule and talent-wise, I think that's right about where they fall. Problem being is that front of the schedule, those first couple games, minus obviously the Giants and the Redskins, that's a tough little stretch right there. They can start off 2-4, and at that point is the division already race between the Seahawks and the 49ers. And even the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are a vastly improved team, which we'll get to in a later video. But this is a tough division. I really don't see this team being the one coming out of it. And I think we're likely going to see a wild card team from this division as well. I'm not making any promises, but if I was a betting man, that's what I'd put my money on. So I think they're going to start off rough, and they might just kind of get defeated themselves. I think a lot of times you see that with teams that you think are probably better than their record shows. Sometimes they just get defeated early in the season. They kind of know their playoff hopes are kind of lost in the sauce, and that's what I think might happen to this team.
See, I think it'll be really interesting because, as you said, those first 3 games are super rough. But really after that next little 5-game stretch, I wouldn't be shocked if they were able to go 5-0 or at least 4-1. Obviously, you have the 49ers there, and in San Francisco, that's a tough game. But then you go into the bye week, you're able to recalibrate, and kind of determine, are you going to be sellers here, or are you really gonna ramp up and try to make a push for the playoffs? And with that late season schedule, obviously you have the Seahawks twice, Cardinals twice, and the Bucs won't be an easy game. But I really wouldn't be shocked if they did finish right around 9 wins. I think if I had to guess right now, I would take the over just slightly, even though, as I've kind of said, I don't love the roster as much as I do many teams in the league.
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna fall. I think they're somewhere between a 7-9 and a 9-17. I think that's where they're gonna fall. I think I'd be surprised if they went less than that. I think I'd be surprised if they went more than that. I think they're gonna fall in that range. And that's kind of the team they have and the talent they have around there.
No, I agree, and especially when you're so almost hard capped out. Like there's not really many moves that you can make. I know Les Snead, and he's kind of proven to be a real wheeler and dealer, but at this point, it almost seems like the cards are, kind of running out.
Yeah. Speaking of cards that aren't running out, mic'd up. Hope you guys are watching these videos. If you are, like them, comment, subscribe. Maybe if you thought we were totally out of whack and this is the best team in the division, let us know. Maybe if there's a video you want to, maybe you have a team you'd like to see next. Maybe you're a Cardinals fan. What are we gonna do next, Mike?
I'm not gonna lie. When I said the cards are running out, I thought you were gonna say I thought you were gonna go straight to the Cardinals after that. No, we're doing the Cardinals next. I think if you comment them or not. So just bring it.
Sorry, I didn't know you threw me an alley-oop. I kind of missed that. It went like out of bounds. I'm like right now spinning with my head chopped off. But not the point. We here doing these videos to spread a wealth of football knowledge. So, Mike, you got anything else?
Nah, man. I think we mic'd up. Now we mic'ing out, baby.
Doses.